As you know, President Trump and President Putin met in Alaska. I'm going to give you the bottom line up front. It was kind of a win-win for each of them because they want different things and they were kind of using each other to get it. Okay, so what exactly happened and like how did this work? Well, first I want to start with this. The New York Post put this as their cover page. This is a dictator. And 10 other Ukrainian war truths that we ignore at our peril. So good on the New York Post for putting this out. So this is the White House, official White House account on X. They're pursuing peace. That was the headline back here. Look at Trump. He seems like happy, like a kid in a candy store that Putin is there with him. I don't understand why, but he seems to. Now, again, he thinks that the world is seeing him as this great peacemaker, and look what he's doing and bringing Vladimir Putin to the table. This is their meeting. It's looking way too chummy as they get together on the red carpet, as Putin gets off his plane, they meet. It's just a jovial time. Okay, here, the White House again put this out, historic as they're walking through here. And it gets even worse when they show this slow motion video of them walking together. It's just, and again, this is the White House, official White House, image on X. Okay. And then there was this interesting thing where like this in the background, this is a 5th gen, F-35, and a Raptor, I believe. And here Putin is impressed by what's going over. Like Trump was trying to overwhelm him. Look at that. Look how impressive our planes are. I think that's what Trump was like trying to show off, like almost like he's trying to impress. Okay, so here they are for their photo op, historic summit at President Donald J. Trump and President Vladimir Putin in Alaska. And so what actually happened? There's already a slogan, but will there be agreement, says Steve Rosenberg from the BBC. It's a legitimate question. At the meeting between Putin and Donald Trump, it's begun in Anchorage. Also taking part in the talks are Sergei Lavrov, Presidential aide Yuri Ushakov, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, President's Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. The CIA director was there, as was the Secretary of Commerce, which seemed to be a bad sign that they were going to be talking about business deals, and that seems to be where they went. Okay, does Trump look like he's about to pressure Putin here? It just doesn't seem that way. It seems like he's very happy about this situation. Okay. So then there was a host of other things before they came to the press conference, like this body language and gestures expert, how media evaluated the meeting between Putin and Trump. Western media are actively discussing the start of the Putin-Trump Alaskan summit. Reuters writes, Trump and Putin greeted each other like old friends. To say that the reception was warm would almost be an understatement. Interestingly, in the meeting room, Putin sat slightly leaning forward with his arms folded. This contrasts with his usual posture of leaning back in his chair, which typically signals disinterest. The Bild, the German newspaper editor-in-chief, criticized Trump for greeting Putin with applause, stating no Russian propaganda agency could have imagined a better image than the U.S. president greeting Putin with applause on the red carpet. There's something to that. Like, we ought to be looking at what Putin actually is and what he's doing to Ukraine, but Trump just, I think both of them think they're in a charm offensive with the other. And that's a really interesting thought. Like, Putin's trying to charm Trump, luring him with business deals. Trump thinks that he's charming Putin and he's going to get him to see things in such a way that it's going to benefit everything, and he's going to get his Nobel Peace Prize. I don't know how it'll play out. We'll see. Then there was this really interesting video. Social media and news are focusing on Vladimir Putin's facial expressions at the start of the meeting with Trump. Like, this is really interesting. Just look at his face. What's going on here? I mean, this was creating speculation that this was a body double and such like that. I don't go for that kind of thing. Maybe he does have a body double. Until I can prove it, I'm not going to say anything like that. So I'm not even speculating about that. But this is some weird facial gestures on Putin's part. Okay, Trump security would have never let Trump ride in Putin's car, but it's interesting that Putin got a ride in the Beast. The Beast is Trump's, or any U.S. president's limousine is called the Beast, and it's thickly armored and that sort of thing. I've solved 6 wars in the last 6 months, says Trump. Little more than 6 months now, and I'm very proud of it. Trump calls himself the ultimate peacemaker ahead of today's summit, and that's what he's going for. That's the image he's trying to create. Now, Putin apparently brought Trump some maps and historical materials that, according to him, prove the artificial nature of Ukraine's statehood. Lenin created Ukraine to justify Russia's aggression. He's probably gotten a history lesson from Putin in this, just like Tucker Carlson got a history lesson. We just don't know how much Trump might have pushed back. We know how little Tucker Carlson pushed back, but we just don't know what Trump has done yet. And then Peskov was saying that nothing was going to come out of this, and there were no documents that came out of this, at least to date. So we had a press conference, nothing was signed in any meaningful way or anything like that. Peskov said this ahead of time. No documents are expected to be signed by Putin today following the meeting with President Trump in Alaska. It's clear that the issues related to the Ukrainian settlement will be discussed. The substance is very complex. We see that, for example, an adequate response from the Europeans is probably something we won't get. Look out, he's already blaming the Europeans. Nevertheless, Putin and President Trump are ready to talk. Nothing has been prepared, and it's unlikely that any document could be signed. So they were preparing us for that sort of thing, and it looks like that was the case. Now, before I finish with a couple of clips of Putin talking and then Trump talking, and it's really important that you watch this. Remember, other U.S. presidents all try to appease Putin or deal with Putin or come to terms with Putin. Bush felt that he had a special relationship with Putin and that he could look into the man's soul, right? Remember that? Or remember the famous the reset button in 2008 with the Obama administration? Yeah, none of that actually worked out. Okay, so they had a closed-door meeting between Putin and Trump that's ended, and then the meeting lasted nearly 3 hours. And then they also had a meeting of the counterparts like Lavrov and Rubio and so on and so forth. But Kellogg, who wanted to go to Alaska, was not allowed to go because the Russian Federation's position. The Kremlin feared that his presence would make the summit with Putin counterproductive. You can find that this was in Ground News and other places. I use Twitter as a starting point for a lot of things, and then I verify things with other sources and use Ground News to prove things out. Okay, Trump said that he wants to hold another meeting with Putin. This was on Fox News before the meeting, and I saw that and I talked about that, and that's, I think, what he's going to get. Trump said that if the meeting is bad, this is before the meeting, if it's something that I don't see a future in, I'm gone, I'll leave. I don't have to do a press conference. I'll just say, not going to be a deal. I'm out of here. And I go back to the United States. Now, we don't know what kind of deal may have come out of this, but they did do a press conference. And in the press conference, they didn't really talk about any of the specifics of it. They just gave some platitudes. Now, I highlighted 3 different places, 2 places where Putin was speaking, and you'll hear a woman's voice because it's a translator, and then 1 place where Trump is speaking. And I want you to hear each of these. Listen.
There have been no summits between Russia and the U.S. for 4 years, and that's a long time. This time was very hard for bilateral relations, and let's be frank, they have fallen to the lowest point since the Cold War.
Well, that's because you invaded your neighbor and embroiled the world into a war that didn't have to start.
I think that's not benefiting our countries and the world as a whole. It is apparent that sooner or later we had to amend the situation to move on from the confrontation to dialogue. And in this case, a personal meeting between the heads of state has been long overdue. Naturally, under the condition of serious and painstaking work, and this work has been done in general. Me and President Trump have very good direct contact. We've spoken multiple times. We spoke frankly on the phone. And Special Envoy of the President, Mr. Witkoff, traveled out to Russia several times. Our advisors and heads of foreign ministries kept in touch all the time. And you know fully well that one of the central issues was the situation around Ukraine. We see the strive of the administration and President Trump personally to help facilitate the resolution of the Ukrainian conflict. And his strive to get to the crux of the matter, to understand this history, is precious.
Yeah, and so what Trump has actually done is elevate Putin back into, bring him out of isolation more by doing these kinds of press conferences. So it's a double-edged sword. Maybe it gets you closer to peace, but at the same time, it definitely will bring him greater stature, and that's unfortunate.
As I've said, the situation in Ukraine has to do with fundamental threats to our security. Moreover, we've always considered the Ukrainian nation, and I've said it multiple times, a brotherly nation, however strange it may sound in these conditions.
A brotherly nation.
We have the same roots, and everything that's happening is a tragedy for us and terrible wound. Therefore,
and something that you're terribly wounding them. Okay, a little bit more from Putin.
The agreement that we've reached together will help us bring closer that goal and will pave the path towards peace in Ukraine. We expect that Kiev and European capitals will perceive that constructively and that they won't throw a wrench in the works.
He's already blaming the Europeans for they're going to try to throw a wrench in the works. I mean, he said it the other way, but he's kind of leading us to that.
They will not make any attempts to use some backroom dealings to conduct provocations to torpedo the nascent progress.
Provocations to torpedo the nascent progress from, of course, the West, because they're the ones that are to blame. Okay.
Incidentally, when the new administration came to power, bilateral trade started to grow.
Oh, see, that's what I was worried about. So if they stayed on Ukraine, there's a greater safety there. It's weird to say because you're worried that he's going to give up territories. And I didn't see anything about territories being cut up or anything like that. So, and we don't know all the facts yet. So that'll come out tomorrow. But there was nothing about that. But they're talking about trade. And it's like catnip for Trump.
It's still very symbolic. Still, we have a growth of 20%. As I've said, we have a lot of dimensions for joint work. It is clear that the U.S. and Russian investment and business cooperation has tremendous potential. Russia and the U.S. can offer each other so much in trade, digital, high-tech, and in space exploration.
Yeah, this is the wrong direction.
Arctic cooperation is also very possible, and our international context, for example, between the Far East of Russia and the West Coast of the U.S. Overall, it's very important for our countries to turn the page, to go back to cooperation.
Okay, to go back to cooperation, but you got to do something first before you cooperate. But then Putin ends this I got to give him credit for the way that he ended it with using the international dateline. Listen to this.
Symbolic that not far away from here, at the border between Russia and the U.S., there was a so-called international dateline. I think you can step over, literally, from yesterday into tomorrow. And I hope we'll succeed in that, in political sphere. I would like to thank President Trump for our joint work.
Yeah, we're going to turn over a new leaf. We're going to step into the future and have these great trade deals. That's where Putin wanted to go. Let's listen to Trump.
And President Putin wants to see that as much as I do. So, again, Mr. President, I'd like to thank you very much. And we'll speak to you very soon and probably see you again very soon.
And that's what Trump wants, is to have another meeting.
Thank you very much, Vladimir.
Putin's response?
Next time in Moscow.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't know. I'll get a little.
And he said that in English. Next time in Moscow.
On that one, but I could see it possibly happening. Thank you very much.
Oh, boy. Okay, so that's where that went. So was this optimal? No. Was it devastating? Probably not. This is where we are today. So set a deadline for Russia. Deadline expires. Putin suggests meaningless negotiations. Negotiations failed due to unrealistic demands. Set a deadline. I mean, we're probably in that cycle. Okay, I looked at the White House website looking for more about this, and there was really nothing at the time that I'm filming this. But I do want you to remember that it's not like a fait accompli for Russia. Poland put this out. There's the official statement from Narwicki, Karl Nawrocki, but I want to read this. Poland warns Kremlin on anniversary of victory over Bolsheviks. On August 15th, that's today, 105 years since the Battle of Warsaw, Prime Minister Donald Tusk reminded Russia tried to crush Europe before and lost. The date matches the planned Trump-Putin meeting in Alaska this Friday. Tusk said that the lessons of history should sober up the skeptics. Support for Ukraine must not be rolled back. Moscow can and must be defeated. 105 years ago today, Poles stopped the Red Army advance on Europe. The Battle of Warsaw is considered a turning point in world history, preventing Europe from falling under Bolshevik rule. And then that was Prime Minister Tusk. Here's the president, Naraki, saying, "Today we celebrate the 105th anniversary of the great Polish victory at the Battle of Warsaw in 1920. The Polish army, together with Ukrainian forces, successfully repelled the Red Army's westward march, safeguarding Europe from a communist revolution. Russian imperialism has been a mortal threat to our freedom. Poland's political tradition teaches that Russian expansionism rests on a legacy of domestic despotism. My nation halted Russian imperialism. Polish people know that it's resting on Russian imperialism, that resisting Russian imperialism is not merely an economic matter. It concerns the very essence of human and national freedom. Freedom is priceless." This is the Polish tradition stretching back to the 15th century. That's why we will never surrender to Russian imperialism. Russia is not unstoppable. Russia is not undefeatable. And we need to remember that because there's too many voices saying it's already done. What I showed you with Scott Ritter yesterday, for example, saying, the Ukraine already lost. They want us to believe that. Okay, just a couple of funny things. Somebody posted this. Meanwhile, Vance is on a $28,000 per week vacation in the Cotswolds. The Reagan caucus posted, "If Rubio suggested this, he's a genius." Sure, send Vance on vacation during this time. And then finally, the White House with pursuing peace. Pursuing peace is what they have as a headline. And Darth Putin posted PIECE of Ukraine, not peace like peace and justice and that sort of thing. And by the way, Darth Putin has this out now. I talked about that I was on Darth Putin, in the bunker with Darth Putin yesterday, but he just put this out in a Darth Putin-like voice, not a long-form interview kind of thing like we did the other day, but this is great. This is him with his tweets and getting more into it. Just go watch one and see what you think. All right, my friends, that's all that I have for you right now. I will update you as more information comes out about the fallout from the summit, and I'll make sure that you're well aware. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already. Thank you for the time, the likes, the shares, and the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.